Welcome to the Joyce and Ste podcast. We're going to be doing this.
Wait. Before we start off, okay, Steve wanted to call this the Joyce and Ste. Okay, and then we both decided let's call it the Joyce and Ste podcast, and then take one, only take, which is this take. Steve decides first sentence of our first ever podcast, he's going to say Joyce and Steve rather than Joyce and Ste. It's the Joyce and Ste.
I meant to say
podcast.
Joyce and Steve.
On
Joyce
Joyce,
and
by the way.
Steve came out because I looked at the running order and it still had Steve on it, so that threw me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Anyway, this is our first podcast, so because it started 2018, what we're going to be doing for the first few podcasts is kind of looking back at 2017, the year that was, and
Dark year for some.
yeah, and just kind of like looking at, taking different aspects and looking at our favourite and our least favourite things in each sort of section. So today we're going to be talking about the best and worst TV of 2017.
Yep.
So we have kind of a few sections that we're going to go through, a few picks.
We've got breakthrough. We've got favorite comedy, favorite drama.
We got like our most disappointing shows
Most
of the year.
disappointing, and then also we have
Favourite miniseries.
favorite miniseries. Oh, we have quite a lot actually. And then also my favorite one is best show that didn't come out in 2017, but you started watching in 2017 that you liked.
Yeah, because that was actually probably the bit that I'm most looking forward to talking about, because for most of 2017, I didn't watch a lot of new shows.
Yeah, same.
I watched a lot of shows that I hadn't seen before that I was catching
I'm
up
pretty
on.
guilty of just watching what comes out on Netflix.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot easier.
Which is a lot of stuff now, but
Yeah. But
Okay, anyway,
as
let's
well,
get
I'm very
into it.
skeptical of starting new shows. Now that there's so many great shows on and they take so much time, I'm quite skeptical of starting a show that's just starting without knowing, if it's good, and like I want to start a show that I know there's 6 great seasons here. I'm
Yeah.
not going to waste my time.
yeah, exactly.
So we'll start off with our breakthrough shows of 2017.
So for me, my breakthrough show was The Deuce, or The Juice, however you want to say it. Set in New York, James Franco plays twin brothers. So he plays one brother who's he's a bar owner, and he runs a bar, and his twin brother is a gambling addict, absolutely off the rails, but James Franco plays both, and he plays them very well, I must say. Standout for me is Maggie Gyllenhaal. She plays a prostitute, single mother, who is very intelligent. She wants a better life for her kid. She's working as a prostitute so that she can, like a remittance. She goes back to him. He's living with the mother, and she wants a better life for herself outside of selling her body on the street. So she tries to get into the world of pornography, which in comparison to prostitution is actually a completely different and legal and
Legitimate profession.
Yeah, even though you as an industry you look down and think, oh geez, porn, but she's actually going into it with a different lens completely and using what she knows to actually break through in the industry. And it's really well acted, set in New York. All the shots are super cool. There's also a bit of mob element as well in there that you'll see if you do watch it, and yeah, just a great show. Can't wait to see season 2.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, I've heard very good things about it. I just, as I say, I'm waiting until season 2 comes out to make sure that it's worth watching season 1. My breakthrough show that I discovered in 2017 that was a new show was, technically it started in 2016, but season 1 did finish in 2017, so
Yeah.
I'm counting it as
Maybe not,
2017.
just about.
And it's The Good Place. So this is a show from Michael Schur, the creator of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Recreation, and it's a sitcom, but it's very different to any other sitcom I think I've ever seen. It's a very different setting. It's the basic premise is that our lead role is Christian Bell, and she, from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, she plays the eponymous Sarah Marshall, and she has died, and she is brought to the good place. So instead of heaven or hell, there's no real religion or no heaven or hell. There's the good place and the bad place, and she's in the good place with all these amazing people who've dedicated their lives to charity and doing good for the world, and she realizes that she's not meant to be here. She's made a mistake and she's supposed to be in the bad place. So then the show goes on with her, this dilemma of she not wanting to get sent to the bad place, but it doesn't belong in the good place because she is a bad person. And it's just weirdly, it turned out to be one of the most intelligent, well-written shows I've seen in a long time.
Agreed. We binge watched this in I think about a week.
Less even. It wasn't a lot. There's only 12 episodes, 13 episodes in the first season.
I think it might be 11.
So it was 11 or 12. It was an odd number.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because it's this deconstruction of the afterlife. Without a religious bent on it, it very quickly just kind of says at this first episode, no religion was right, this isn't a Christian thing or anything like that, there's no allegory here for that. Instead it's focusing on, these questions of morality, mortality and philosophy that they, pop in between pop culture references and, physical comedy and slapstick.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
But
it's very clever while still being a laugh out loud sitcom.
There's a great, not so much a twist, but just
I'd call it a twist.
Yeah, a twist towards the end.
There's quite a few twists and turns along the way.
Yeah.
That's why we wanted to binge watch it so much. It lends itself to binge watching quite well. I just thought it was a really, really clever sitcom as well as being so funny, and I'm really looking forward to continuing watching that in 2018.
Yeah, very soon, hopefully. We'll move on to our next category, which is favourite comedy. This one for me, absolute no-brainer, had to be Master of None. I know there's been some rumours and allegations about Aziz Ansari recently, but
we're not going to go into
we're
that.
not going to get into that on this show because
it's for another podcast.
Yeah, stay tuned, guys. Like and smash that like button. Yeah, I don't even know if you can like it.
Yeah, you can.
So 10 episodes following on from a very, very successful season 1, solely on Netflix. It's set in New York. Aziz Ansari kind of plays himself or a younger version of himself.
Because it's semi-auto.
Yeah,
autobiographical.
Set in New York, as I said, but also has a lot of flashbacks to time that he spent in Italy, where he met a lady. Season 2 is about how he meets up with that lady, realizes he falls in love with the lady, and the whole time you also have his 2 friends and his parents, who are his actual parents. Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
They're so funny, and his 2 friends, I think, the big white man and the lesbian black lady, who just kind of make the show. I think we were talking about the Thanksgiving episode.
The Thanksgiving episode, she wrote it as well as starring in it, that episode, and it was just it was one of the best episodes of TV I think I've seen all year, and just really the story of the episode is she's it shows the Thanksgivings but every few years it shows Thanksgivings starting from her childhood and her discovering her sexuality and realizing that she's gay. And then when she starts bringing girls home for Thanksgiving, and her family who's not quite so liberal, how they cope with it, and it was just really, really well done, and she was superb in it. She gave a great performance.
Yeah, but it's funny that it wasn't like sort of story where at the end they really congratulate her sexuality.
Yeah.
She's still older and still.
But it's still a hopeful.
It's realistic. Yeah, it's a hopeful end, but
yeah,
that was one of the best episodes. Also, another episode, I think it's episode 5, dinner party episode. So Aziz and his Italian friend go to a dinner party, and I won't ruin it, but John Legend is there in life playing piano, and it's pretty spectacular.
The other episode that was great was the kind of Tinder episode.
Oh yeah.
Where they and then the girl from that, as a weird aside, we saw her doing stand up at the Vodafone comedy show this year.
The Indian lady,
yeah,
who's like in the Tinder or
She
dating
she
app
was the
episode.
one who said that who was just there to meet friends. She thought
Yeah.
it was a friend making app.
And then she was going on like another date straight
yeah,
after.
to meet another
But
friend.
she was terrible though at that.
She wasn't
Comedy
very
night.
funny. No.
Not saying
Tommy
she's
Tiernan
terrible,
was
but-
on after though. He was great. He was the headline act.
Yeah.
But back to the best comedy shows. My pick is going to be a long-awaited return for Rick and Morty, which finished season 2 with the message that it would be about a year and a half for season 3. Mr. Poopy Butthole broke the news to us. And the show then came back on April Fool's Day for the first episode, the Rick Shank Redemption, which is probably still my favourite episode of the series. And it's, Rick, the hero, scientist, anti-hero, villain, if some people think, of the show, escaping from the prison that he was brought into in season 2. And it was just really well done and created this whole Szechuan sauce craze where fans became a bunch of assholes. And but yeah, the comedy, it was my favourite comedy of the year. It was so funny, so smart, so well written. Probably the best season of Rick and Morty so far. It gave us Pickle Rick and the Rick Lantis mix up with the Return of Evil Morty, and it's just it's a show that just keeps getting smarter and more personal as well as it goes on, and kind of delving into the characters as well as these crazy sci-fi concepts every week.
Yeah. That Szechuan sauce, that was stuff that was in McDonald's. Right?
Yeah, so the joke was that
I don't know the show at all.
Rick is in this prison of his own memories. So
Nice.
McDonald's released this sauce in conjunction with the Mulan movie in 1998, and it was a Szechuan sauce. It's a great movie. We watched it on Christmas Day,
Ugh.
and then they don't make it anymore. They only made it for a promotion for that movie. But Rick can go because he's in his own memories. He can go back to his own memories and get the sauce. The whole thing is that then he says at the end of the episode that his 10-season arc is just going to be about getting the Szechuan sauce back. And then a few months later, McDonald's for a day brought back the Szechuan sauce. And fans just went crazy over it and started throwing hissy fits and tantrums in McDonald's, and then auctioning
PR
them
move,
off in for
How much are they going for?
they were going for thousands.
Oh my.
I should look that up. You talk about your favorite drama. I'm gonna look up how much that sold for.
Okay. Favorite drama for me. This is one that kind of went under the radar a little bit. I haven't actually got to speak with anyone about this show. Is how under the radar it went, especially in Ireland. Anyway, I think it was bigger in the States. It was a Netflix release called Ozark. Stars Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman, you know him from Horrible Bosses, Arrested Development, and Dodgeball. Do you remember?
Juno.
And Juno. Do you remember Dodgeball? You know, like the
commentator.
the commentators. Cotton.
When he puts the blindfold on, and he's not going to be able to see very well now.
He's fantastic. But he plays a completely different role in Ozark. He actually plays a financial advisor who gets caught up in a Mexican drug cartel. He gets offered an offer he can't refuse, and eventually gets extremely wound up, and he's seen murders and all this sort of stuff, and he decides he has to move his family. Moves his family to a small town, and they have a lot of cash hidden in their home, like insane amount of cash, like $50 million or something like that they're storing not just for themselves but also for the cartel. So it's not even like if he loses it, it's okay. He'll die. Some serious violence, some kind of strange underlying themes that relate to the drug and gun laws in America. That's a bit messed up. You see, his kid buys a gun or acquires a gun. We'll leave that. And yeah, hillbillies, drug cartels, money laundering. Jason Bateman. It's just good.
I haven't seen it, and what I have heard about it, the reviews were not great.
The reviews
But
are
you're
not
the
bad.
only one that I know that's actually watched the show. So
There you go. There you go.
I don't have any anecdotal evidence that it is poor, except for the
Don't
reviews.
trust those online journalists.
Well, my favourite drama of the year is my favourite drama of the last few years as well, which is Game of Thrones.
Surprise.
Which is just the biggest and most cinematic show on TV right now. Once again, we're back in Westeros, and you know everyone knows Game of Thrones now. And because we're now in the second last series, we are seeing a lot of characters and storylines starting to converge, and people are meeting up, and paths are crossing, and which led to some of the best episodes of the season, like Beyond the Wall, where you had this band of a bunch of our favourite characters all going off on a suicide mission beyond the wall, which led to just some of the most spectacular imagery. Speaking of which, the loot train attack, where we got to see not only the Dothraki finally in action with a horde of them on horseback charging at the Lannister army, but we also get to see the dragons in battle at last as Drogon just decimates the armies, and it's just so incredible how the best blockbuster imagery of the year is coming from a TV show, and it just shows how far we really have come. That TV is as cinematic
TV
as cinema now.
Evolved like the last 4 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean it's so different now. To if you could look at some of those dragon shots, like they belong on the big screen, and they did show. I think it was season 4. Before season 5, they showed the last 2 episodes of season 4 in IMAX.
What season is this?
This is now season 6, so the last season will
As
be
in season you're talking about.
talking about season 6. The last season was the next season will be season 7, which unfortunately won't be back until 2019. 2019. So 2018 there'll be no Game of Thrones. But yeah, you see, this is the thing. They're 6-7 hour. They're like each series is about 10 hours long.
Like proper
with massive different battle sequences, not just like in Lord of the Rings, the 2 towers. There was the Battle of Helm's Deep, and then the other battles were not really as big. Like we're talking about several massive battles per season now, so I think it's fair enough, and I'm happy to wait rather than they rush it out and it not be as good. But yeah, so now our favourite mini-series of the year.
Favorite mini-series, predictable, but Black Mirror. Just watched it. I watched it all.
Yeah, it's great though.
I watched it all in 4 days or something. It's just fantastic. Well, to be honest, I'm a bit split on it because
we both have the same 2 favourite episodes.
We both have the same, which is episode 1 and episode 5, and then the others for me aren't like standout episodes. The Tinder one, not Tinder one, but where they go on dates and they know
with the system that will find your perfect partner.
They know how long their relationship is going to last.
I think it was a really good concept.
Yeah.
Which the same with episode 3 with the diving into the memories.
Yeah.
I thought they were both really good concepts, but I thought the stories then around them and the characters just weren't really. I mean, the two love interests in the Tindery episode or whatever, they had good chemistry.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really anything to them or to the world, and when
we didn't know anything about them either. Like we need.
When you do find out the reveal though at the end, you realize, okay, well that's why there's no spoilers alert when they get out at the end and it's revealed that it was just a simulation. And there's nothing else in the world outside of that simulation. Once they rebel, they're out of it. It kind of was just like, okay, well that's why they haven't explained more about this world or why this system is in place or anything. But then it was just kind of like, that's still not very good.
Yeah.
It
doesn't. It's still not. It could have been better actually.
Yeah, I thought and the same with the diving in the memories episode. Fantastic concept. Well, the characters were weak. They were very weak.
I thought she was quite good. I thought she was pretty relatable, like her actions.
Oh really?
And what she did, yeah.
I didn't at all. I thought she was just a villain. I was like, why am I rooting for this woman who just keeps killing people?
Yeah, but you got to remember that she did experience that when she was so young, and she just had that guilt on her. I know I remember the first bad decision. She made a string of consecutive ridiculous decisions, and the first one, it was kind of like she made the bad decision there.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them were almost justified by how bad that decision was, and then that's why she kept going. But yeah,
there wasn't really.
It
there
was a bit
the first
unrealistic though.
where
after a while,
she
Like, I know
never
it's all
was sympathetic though. I understood why she had to keep killing people, but I never got to. She never seemed to feel any real remorse except just crying a bit. Like, it was weird.
Okay, but the good episodes.
The good episodes.
Okay, USS Callister.
The first episode
1. Probably my favorite episode.
Probably my favorite episode of Black Mirror. Full stop.
Yeah. So it's this guy. He's CTO of a big tech company. Is it his brother? Or
no, they were just
they're
friends.
just business friends.
Yeah, they were friends in college. Started business.
Started their business together. He was the chief
virtual
technical
reality
officer, and
game.
his friend was CEO baller, super cool, manly man.
Played by Jimmy Simpson of Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Westworld fame. 3
And
very different characters going on here though.
And he's excellent in it.
He's very good, yeah.
Basically there's a simulation game that this chief technical officer has created, and he punishes people who doing wrong in real life in this little game that he's created, but the people are also living a clone of themselves essentially in this game. And
well, he's taken their, well, not to give the twist away, but
yeah, okay, basically he has literally cloned them
with their memories and everything.
Yeah, so
from their DNA into the virtual reality sci-fi game. It's like a Star Trek.
Is aware
world.
of the version of themselves in the real world, but the version of themselves in the real world isn't aware of themselves in
the game, because this
game.
is a separate thing from the main virtual reality game that the company owns.
But it's just interesting how like petty he is over the tiniest little thing that you can do for him, like not asking him for a coffee or something. And it's those sort of things that make you feel excluded in the real world.
But as well, the episode
so small.
Is so clever in the way that it does a bait and switch on you, where you first start the episode sympathetic for him, for the villain in the show. You feel really sorry for him. You really feel like everyone's beaten down on him. He's real downtrodden and stuff.
He can't express himself.
And then he turns out to be really, really sadistic and villainous.
Psychopath.
And the performances all around are stellar. It's just really well written. It got the sci-fi Star Trek vibe.
Was my favorite character, definitely.
Yeah,
like
he
at
was
the
excellent.
end. At the end, I'm not going to ruin it, but he's sort of heroic at the end. It's really cool. But let's move on to episode 5 of Black Mirror, which is the Metalhead episode. It's post-apocalyptic world, beautifully shot, all in black and white. It's essentially a chase between a woman and a robotic dog. It's set in British countryside, really great, mountainous, great house at the end as well that you get to see. And it's just so scary how capable, intelligent, resilient, self-repairing that these robots could become, and become so intelligent that they can chase us and kind of unbeatable. They're invincible.
Yeah, it was like a Terminator or a slasher movie. It was like a Jason Voorhees, to the point where at the climax of the episode, the robot dog is literally walking around a haunted house in the woods with a knife about to kill a woman.
Knife as a leg.
Yeah, it was full on slasher movie at the end. But more so, I like this episode because it was just such a leaner, simpler Black Mirror. It's just telling the story. And then the concept is built into the story because the concept is the dog.
And the whole time you're just kind of learning tiny little things as you go. It doesn't give you massive chunks of overload information about the world.
Exposition, like no one's just sitting there explaining the plot to you, which I find Black Mirror does do quite a lot.
It's because, it does, but it has to because it does so much, such a big concept in such a small 50 minutes or an hour.
But
to get a huge
but
idea
this proves
across.
that there are ways of kind of, even though it's a simpler idea of getting
Yeah,
it across.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll just talk kind of briefly about my pick because it was not quite the heights of last year's Planet Earth 2 or People vs. O.J. Simpson, which were like probably my two favourite shows of last year.
Was O.J. Simpson a miniseries?
Yeah, because it was just the one like series.
Okay, yeah, it's standalone.
Standalone, so then it's Blue Planet 2, which is the sequel to obviously Blue Planet, and there was just taking us places that we've never seen before, such as the deep sea episode, and you got to see these creatures that had never been filmed before, that you could never imagine, all these weird creatures like this fish that skull and brain are luminous and see-through, so that his eyes can see straight up through his skull and he can eat food that's above him. Weird stuff going on.
You know,
And
you
there
Black Mirror when you got Blue Planet.
Ah, exactly. And then you got like the killer whales hunting the fish episode, which was just like a dance, beautifully choreographed dance or something that they were doing to catch these fish, and then the humpback whales come in. Great stuff as well. I mean, David Attenborough is just
Yeah,
a god.
I wouldn't actually mind watching a bit of that.
So now we're going to talk about the most disappointing shows of the year for us.
Yeah, okay, so another Netflix show that I don't think that many people saw, called Atypical. I remember seeing the ads for this months and months before it came out. Really looking forward to it. And it wasn't, I can't actually say it was a bad show, but it's disappointing in my expectations, which is equally my fault. But it's about a 18-year-old guy with autism, and he's like going through relationships with his family and his sister, and then also trying to make friends in school and all the struggles that brings for an autistic guy at that age. And my problem with it was that it just didn't focus on that enough. It talked more about his relationship between his mother and his father, and his mother having an affair, and then his father had an affair in the past, and it's just, it goes too off tangent on that, and then it doesn't relate it back to Sam himself, who is the protagonist in this case. Overall, the representation of an autistic kid at that age, I thought was really good, and it's really progressive to see in a show. But I hope if there is a season 2 that it just kind of focuses more on Sam's feelings to everything than just having the characters have their own lives. But yeah, not the worst show, but disappointing.
Well, speaking of not the worst show, but disappointing, my most disappointing show was also my favourite drama of the year. I felt it was a better year for documentaries and comedies this year. Also, I didn't see a lot of the dramas this year. But back to the point. Yeah, I definitely thought this was the worst series of Game of Thrones. Like, the 6th series is definitely the worst one. I mean, the spectacle is the stuff that was phenomenal. But it's not actually the stuff that I started watching Game of Thrones for, which was the political machinations, the dialogue, the characters and their interplay, the deceptions and betrayal. Like, it was this amazing political drama that just happened to be set in a fantastical world. Whereas now it's much more becoming a blockbuster fantasy show, which is great in one way, but if they could keep doing the well-written character stuff as well. And
you're asking a lot there.
Well, that's what they've been doing for 6 seasons.
I know, but
for 5 seasons before this.
I will keep in mind that while Steve has it in his most disappointing show, he also has his first note written, still better than 99% of TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's still great. It's just disappointing that it was so poorly written in comparison to the first 5 series, which had balanced the spectacle and the good character stuff so well. I mean, he just had so many underdeveloped storylines and plot holes. I mean, people have talked, but it's a valid point about the Beyond the Wall episode. There's so many things wrong with it. We have like 7 of our favourite characters going beyond the wall. In any other series of Game of Thrones, 6 of them wouldn't be coming back. Where it was the opposite this time round. It's not got the shock value anymore. And as well, you have people being able to sort of teleport around the map, which, you know, in earlier seasons it was always a point about how far everything was from each other, and you know you could only walk or horse ride places, so it took time to get there, and that was a part of the storytelling. Whereas now people are just all over the place within an episode, like just flying around the place.
Oh yeah, I don't like that.
It just really strains and just takes me out of the show, because I'm just thinking now about how that's not possible instead of being invested in what's happening on screen. And then, you know, there's got all this fan service. You know, everyone wants to see Danny and John together at last, and the two actors have no chemistry, and they just have no chemistry with each other, because I mean we've seen within the show both actors being able to have really good chemistry with different love interests that they've had throughout the series, and then when they get with each other, there's no chemistry there at all.
That's disappointing.
Yeah,
I give you that.
And then there's the Winterfell stuff with Arya and Sansa. I thought was terribly done. It was, so everything was kind of rushed. I'm still, obviously, my most anticipated show of all time will be the final series of Game of Thrones. But I just, up until this point, I've had complete faith in the storytelling and the showrunners, and them knowing every time that they kill one of my favourite characters, I just keep having complete faith that they know what they're doing with each storyline, because every action has had a reaction that's brought different characters in different ways that's unexpected and keeps the show being great. Whereas this is very much, getting much more predictable, and I'm not as confident going into season 7 as I was going into season 6.
That's fair.
So now we're going to be talking about our favourite old show. So essentially the show that we only started watching in 2017, that was our favourite.
So you'll probably be able to help me out. Do you know what year Parks and Rec came out?
Oh, 2009, 2010.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
early around 2010, we'll say.
Parks and Rec. So 7 seasons. Steve had watched it before.
Loved it. I've watched it all the way through twice before.
You and our friend Josh.
Yeah.
I think are the only people.
Constantly harking on about this show because it's great.
We know that I've watched it already, and yeah, so 7 seasons. Steve advised me to skip season 1.
Yeah, don't bother with season 1 if you're going to watch Parks and Rec. Just skip it. You
So
don't,
we went
you don't
with
need
that.
to watch it.
7 seasons. We watched it in a month, which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
I thought I hated Amy Poehler before, just from sketches that I've seen with her, and
some of her stuff. She plays quite unlikable characters in a lot of movies. Like in Blades of Glory, she's funny, but her character is the villain, so she is unlikable.
And she plays a really good villain. But in this, you kind of think at the start, like maybe she's
very
a bit of a
uptight
villain.
and
She's
snarky,
not that.
and
She's kind of
not
likable. But as you progress, you kind of fall in love with her.
Yeah.
And her character completely.
She's just one of the best characters on TV.
With
it's got one of the best supporting casts in TV.
Oh,
with Aziz Ansari and
Nick Offerman, Aubrey Plaza,
Adam
Chris
Scott,
Pine, Rob Lowe,
Chris Pratt.
What did I say?
Chris Pine. It's difficult with Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, Chris Evans, and Chris Hemsworth. 3 of them are in Marvel movies.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But I agree. I think the addition of Adam Scott and Rob Lowe, who play Ben and Chris. Jesus Christ. Who play Ben and Chris in this, just absolutely made it. So Ben falls in love with Leslie. I'm saying too much already, but
You gave away a massive spoiler.
no, I'm joking. Didn't happen, obviously. So all of the characters, they're sort of characters that you can laugh at, you laugh with, but you also feel empathy for them. And you grow
really
with
care
them as they grow older as well. Like you kind of feel like you age and you become more mature as the show gets a bit more mature. And yeah, it's funny, but it's also clever. And
it's very clever. Like it talks about government bureaucracy and campaigns and the political
race
system.
a lot as well.
Yeah, a lot of race stuff, a lot of class stuff, and then but the main thing is just the characters and how great they all are together and the cast
and their chemistry.
Yeah,
that's what you could tell, like off screen, that they clearly all get along really well.
And a lot of it's improvised and stuff. The creator, not the creator, but one of the writers said that he hates Chris Pratt because the best line in all of Parks and Rec was improvised by Chris Pratt, which is when Leslie is thinking that she's maybe pregnant, she's Googling symptoms, and Andy goes, I googled what might be wrong with you, and it says you may have connectivity issues.
Fantastic.
He also there's an outtake as well where they're talking about the best comebacks.
Yeah.
And they're like shouting out like, oh, Rocky and shit, and Chris Pratt, Andy Dwyer goes, Kim Kardashian, and they sort of play along with the improvisation. They're like, oh yeah, and sort of, and he's like, yeah, she had come on her back in the video, and everyone just loses it laughing, and they all break.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and he just improvised it.
But that leads me on, as we said, all of those characters and actors have gone on to do pretty incredible things, but so have the actors in your choice.
Yeah, so my choice is a show that I've been hearing about for about 10 years now, and I just haven't ever got around to actually watching it, and that is Freaks and Geeks, the show created by Paul Feig and Jude Apatow. Paul Feig, director of The Heat, Bridesmaids, Spy, and Jude Apatow, the producer of just about every comedy in the 2000s, Anchorman, director of Seth Rogen and all Seth Rogen, director of 4-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Funny People. He's produced Step Brothers, anything Adam McKay does, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, all those movies. Like, it's Jude Apatow's behind it, and he was similarly behind Freaks and Geeks with Paul Feig. And the cast then is probably one of the best ever on TV. You've got Jason Segel, Seth Rogen, James Franco, Linda Cardellini, Martin Starr. You've got the likes of Rashida Jones, Ben Stiller, Shia LaBeouf, just dropping in for one episode at a time before any of them were really famous. I mean, this is 1999. It'll be before Zoolander came out, the same year as, Meet the Parents came out. So, it's even Ben Stiller, this is just a role for him rather than a big cameo or anything.
Yeah.
And the show
That's crazy.
is, I expected to like the Freaks more than the Geeks, and even in the first few episodes, which I'll admit, it took me a few episodes to get into the show, I was really finding that it was kind of cliche, and that some of there was a lot of cliche characters, there was cliche freaks, cliche geeks, and I wasn't really getting it. But then as the show went on, it really started to actually subvert a lot of the cliches and all the tropes that we'd come to expect from an 80s set High School Musical or TV show. And the characters really came into their own with, a lot of episodes dedicated more to one or two characters in particular, maybe one of the freaks or one of the geeks. And I ended up much actually relating and liking the geek side of it more. And Martin Starr ended up kind of being the MVP of the series for me. I thought his performance was incredible, where he was this really awkward, lanky, the most geekiest looking person you could ever see. And then when it came to his more dramatic moments, he was able to give fantastic performances, and then, there's an episode where his mum is dating the gym teacher, and the gym teacher is played by Biff from Back to the Future, because of course it is. And he's the geek, and his mom's dating the gym teacher, and so obviously that's like, he hates gym, and he's all like, why can't I ever be picked on, why am I always picked last on the team, why am I never allowed to play and all this, and he gives such a good performance, along with the whole cast is so strong. And it really just captures the high school experience as well from so many different angles, because you really get to spend a lot of time with, the parents and what it's like for them to have their children go through high school. It shows the teachers as well, and the guidance counselors, big roles, and you see, the role interacting with these kids has on them, as well as showing, the geeks as well as the bullies, and they both get to show their sides, and you understand why the bullies bully and why they feel like the way that they do,
Yeah,
as well as having, the dumb, the dumbest characters in the show be best friends with some of the smartest characters in the show, and just really dissect everything. And I think everyone who watches this will have at least one character that they really relate to, which kind of brings on to the sad thing, there was only 18 episodes, because no one watched the show.
I was going to ask, what season 2?
Yeah,
What
no
happened?
season 2, it was one series, and
There's definitely been some articles floating about I presume if
It's
I Google it, I
one
will
of the
find
shows
so
that
much
I've watched.
speculation on it.
It was like Arrested Development, Freaks and Geeks, and Firefly, like pretty much the big three in terms of shows that were cancelled before their time.
Yeah.
And I've seen Arrested Development, which I agreed was cut before its time, but then was brought back by Netflix for season 4, which was terrible, and I couldn't even finish it.
Oh, no.
So I'm
year?
not for bringing shows back 10 years on anymore. But Freaks and Geeks is amazing because if you consider
I
how
think they could
famous
bring back
everyone
the
is,
cast to do something.
this is the thing.
That'd
I
be
mean,
cool.
everyone in the show has gone on to do such great things that, as much as I wish that there had been a second season, I'm also kind of like, if there had been a second season, would these, or if this had gone on for 5-6 seasons, would these actors have ended up being as successful and the crew as well? Like, would Judd Apatow have gone into producing movies starring Seth Rogen instead of a TV show starring Seth Rogen?
Different. They should do like cooking shows and then call it like.
But I mean,
Freaks
so
and
many of them
Geeks.
are still working together. I mean, if you look at Seth Rogen and James Franco are
They do
making a
everything, yeah.
movie every year
Yeah.
together. It's and so many of these people have gone
Shia
on
LaBeouf
to be
and
so
Seth
famous.
Rogen, they live together.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
But fun fact of the day there.
but yeah,
That was podcast 1. I'll leave
Yeah.
Steve to do the outro. But
but yeah.
afterwards, yeah.
So that was our first podcast. So we're just kind of testing out, things with structure and everything like that. If you want to kind of see us do more of this, or if you think we should kind of just be arguing, debating more, or what kind of stuff we should be doing, sure, let us know.
Let us
Leave
know.
a comment down below.
Oh.
And that'll
Like,
be
share,
all.
subscribe.